Hello friends, let us discuss frequency domain analysis for the second order system in detail. Let us begin. So let us consider the standard second order system. I'm sure you are aware of the standard second order system. So let us understand this. This is a standard second order system that we have already learned in the time domain analysis. If you look at this system carefully, that is a loop gain g of s into h of s value is 1 since it is a unity feedback system. So if you look at the type of system, the type of system is 1, that is nothing but one pole at origin. And if you look at the order, that is highest power of s in the denominator of the loop gain, it is 2. So it is order. Obviously, the type is not important here. What is important over here is the order number, and that's the reason why it is called as a second order. The standard transfer function, that is nothing but the closed loop transfer function for standard second order system, is given as omega n square whole divided by s square plus 2 zeta omega n s plus omega n square. So let me write it. So here, let us assume that we have to since do a frequency domain analysis, as we have already discussed in the last lecture, that we substitute s equal to j omega by considering the sigma value to be equal to 0. So let us substitute s equal to j omega in the above transfer function and let's see what do we get. So the transfer function can be written as omega n square as it is divided by, look at the first term, it is s square, means it is j omega square. Naturally j square is minus 1, so it will remain only omega square, that is minus omega square, plus it is 2 zeta omega n, s is replaced with j omega plus omega n square. So let me rearrange it properly. Rearranging means I'm taking real part and imaginary part together in the denominator. So what do I get? If I take the real part together, it is simply omega n square minus omega square as a real part, plus the imaginary part is 2 zeta omega n times omega. I hope you get that. What I'm actually doing, I'm going to divide numerator as well as the denominator by omega n square for some reason. Try to understand. So the modified transfer function will be, it is omega n square by omega n square divided by omega n square upon omega n square minus omega square by omega n square plus j 2 zeta omega n times omega divided by, over here also, omega n square. So let us try to cancel out some terms. What do I get? Omega n square cancel each other. Omega n square cancels each other. Here omega n cancels. So whatever remaining, let us write it. But before we proceed ahead, let us assume the ratio of omega by omega n as u. So I assume that omega by omega n as u, and this is called as a normalized frequency. So this is called as a normalized frequency. Later on, once we finish with this, I'll be substituting back the value of u. I'm just substituting omega upon omega n equal to u so as to make it simple, okay? So as to make it simple. So now, orally speaking, what do we get over here? Look at the numerator. The numerator has become 1, isn't it? This omega n square got cancelled, so we have 1 here. Then look at this, omega square upon omega n square. So you know that omega upon omega n is u, so definitely the second term becomes what? U square. So it is like 1 minus u square. Now what is remaining as the imaginary part? Look at the imaginary part. Again we have omega upon omega n here. So this will also give me the another term, that is u. So in the real term, in the denominator, what we have is 1 minus u square plus imaginary term we have j 2 zeta u, isn't it? So let's move ahead. and let us write the transfer function in terms of u now. Finally, we have transfer function as 1 over, it is 1 minus u square as the real part plus imaginary part j 2 zeta u. I hope you get that. So now what I can do is, this is my complete transfer function. So I can treat this as one block. So this is a block having transfer function as 1 over, it is 1 minus u square plus j 2 zeta u. Now let me assume my input is, let's say, sine omega t. You know very well, whenever we apply sine omega t as input to any LTI system, the output is also sinusoidal. Only two things are changing, that is amplitude and the phase. Therefore, the output that I can write is in the form of m sine of, the frequency remains same, so it remains omega t, and then we will have some additional phase, of course. So let us say this is phi. So what I'm interested to see is to calculate magnitude along with the phase. So we are interested to calculate magnitude and we are interested to calculate the phase. So let us follow the standard procedure. How do we get the magnitude? Look at this very carefully. So this is the transfer function that we have. Let us assume this transfer function as h of j omega, for example. So the magnitude is always whatever h of j omega function that we have, we take a magnitude of it. We take a magnitude of it and that becomes a magnitude. At what frequency? At the operating frequency. So here operating frequency is omega. Therefore, it is just magnitude of h of j omega and that becomes the magnitude. That is nothing but m in our case. And whenever you want to get the phase, it is simply take the same h of j omega and calculate the angle for it. And that's it. Once we get magnitude, once we get phase, I can write my output c of t. Because in general, we call output as c of t. In general, we call input as what? R of t. R of t stands for reference input, C of t stands for controlled output. So since I have to calculate controlled output, I have to calculate two things, that is magnitude along with the phase. Let us try to calculate the magnitude. It is very simple to calculate the magnitude. Look at this. Magnitude, as we have written above, it is just a modulus of h of j omega. That is nothing but the complete transfer function. In the numerator, we have 1. So magnitude of 1 is 1. Let us go to the denominator now. In the denominator, we have real part and imaginary part. So it is just under root of real part square plus imaginary part square. So it is under root of real part is 1 minus u square the whole square plus imaginary part square. So imaginary part is 2 zeta u. So the square of 2 zeta u is 4 zeta square u square. I hope you understood this. This is what we called as a magnitude. Let us try to calculate the phase. You know that whenever you calculate the phase angle and when it is in the form of ratio, it is always angle of numerator minus angle of denominator. So in a way, it is angle of 1 minus angle of denominator. What is angle of denominator? So it is angle of actually 1 minus u square plus j 2 zeta u. So you know that angle of 1 is always 0 degree minus it is tan inverse of imaginary part upon real part. So imaginary part is 2 zeta u and the real part is 1 minus u square. Finally, we have the phase also. Finally, we have the magnitude also. So let us substitute that and get the final value of c of t. So look at this. Over here, I'm writing the final c of t. So what we want first? Magnitude. What is the magnitude? Look at this. This is the magnitude. So let me write that magnitude. It is 1 over under root of 1 minus u square whole square plus 4 zeta square u square. Then it is sine of, so it is sine of, it is omega t plus phi, and the phi is minus tan inverse of what it is 2 zeta u whole divided by 1 minus u square. I hope you are getting this point. I'm sure you have understood this. So this is nothing but the final output c of t. But then I have to actually work on magnitude over here. So what is important to me over here is this magnitude. So I'll be taking this magnitude and still I'll talk more on this. Okay, let's see. As I said, the magnitude is very important to me, so I'm just writing the magnitude over here. So magnitude was 1 over, it is under root of 1 minus u square, then square of this, plus it is 4 zeta square u square. So this was the magnitude, right? What I'm actually going to do, I'm going to see how this magnitude is changing with respect to u. For example, let me assume that u equal to 0, thereafter I'll take u equal to 1, and so on. I'll go up to u tending to infinity. So for every possible of u, I will be calculating the respective value of m. Meanwhile, we will decide, or we will assume the value of zeta, let's say varying between 0 to 1. And if you remember, this is what we called as underdamped case. So just keep the thing in mind that zeta is lying between 0 to 1. Let us substitute u value equal to 0 in the above magnitude expression. Let us see what magnitude do we get. Okay, so let us do this orally. Okay, once you substitute u equal to 0, you can consider this is 1 square. Okay, then again you are substituting u square as 0 over here. So what you ultimately get over here is magnitude equal to 1. You'll get magnitude equal to 1, because in the denominator you will have root of 1, in the numerator you have 1 divided by root 1, obviously magnitude remains. Let us substitute u value equal to 1. The moment you substitute u value equal to 1, check out the first bracket. Check out the first bracket, it will become 0. It will become absolutely 0. Then the second term, it will be only 4 zeta square, because u square will be equal to 1, because u value equal to 1. I'm talking about the second term. Substitute u equal to 1, you will get only 4 zeta square. So basically in the denominator what we have, root of 4 zeta square, and of course the root of 4 zeta square will be 2 zeta. Ultimately the magnitude will become 1 upon 2 zeta. I hope you understood that. And at the end, when you substitute u value equal to infinity, the denominator of m becomes 0. I mean to say not 0 but infinity. So if denominator becomes infinity, obviously the magnitude will become 0. So as you can see, when I'm actually increasing the value of u, initially m is increasing. So here people misinterpret this as if m is decreasing. Okay, so let me tell you what is happening. See, look at this. If you remember, the zeta is lying between what? It is 0 to 1. So let me assume, zeta equal to 1 by 2, let's say. If I'm assuming zeta equal to 1 by 2, or let me assume zeta equal to 1 by 4. Fine. So what magnitude will become? It will become 1 upon 2 into 1 by 4. So it is 2 2s are 4, and magnitude will become 2. Can't you see that here magnitude is 1, here magnitude is what? It is increasing. It is increasing, and thereafter can you see that the magnitude has become 0, thereafter the magnitude is decreasing. So initially magnitude is increasing from 1, and thereafter the magnitude is decreasing. Now I know the behavior of m with respect to u. Now I can show it even graphically also. Let me just try to plot a graph of m versus u. So here I'm having m, here I'm having u, this is 0. Fine. So as you could see, the magnitude was initially 1 when u was equal to 0. So I'm starting with 1. As you can see, when I'm progressing from u equal to 0 to 1, the magnitude started increasing. And thereafter, as you can see, u is increasing, the magnitude is decreasing. So initially it takes the maximum value, and maybe thereafter it is decreasing. It is decreasing like this. I hope you got the point. So this is a standard curve for magnitude versus frequency. This is the standard curve for magnitude versus frequency for the standard second order system. So let me define few terms over here. So the very first term is nothing but, I would say this one as the maximum peak. So I would say this is MR. So don't get confused. This M is nothing but something on y-axis. Fine. So MR is the maximum value or maximum resonant peak. The frequency at which you get the maximum magnitude, let me assume that frequency as UR in this case. Secondly, the normal value is considered to be 1. I repeat, the normal value is considered to be 1. You remember something called as bandwidth. So how do we take the bandwidth? Bandwidth means at least the range of frequency over which I'm getting the satisfactory output. So when I consider 1 as a normal output, so 1 as a normal magnitude, then 1 by root 2 is the acceptable amplitude which I can say. So 1 by root 2 will lie somewhere over here, to which if I project on this graph, I will get one more frequency, and that one more frequency is defined as UB. So this is giving me the bandwidth. So this range of frequency over which I'm getting the satisfactory output can be considered as bandwidth. So this is bandwidth. UR, as I said, it is called as a resonant frequency. Then MR is called as a resonant peak. And 0 to UB range will give me the bandwidth. So let us see, I'm going to derive each and one of them. Okay, so it is just I have actually introduced you that these terms are coming in picture. Obviously we are going to study them in detail. I'm going to derive the expression for MR, UR, UB, etc. Obviously from gate point of view, even though the derivation is not important, but obviously even after gate examination you may be going for IES exam, so there you need these derivations. And let me tell you, it is my belief that whenever you know the derivations, then it is easy for even for you to remember the end product. Otherwise, if I directly give you the formulas, then you may not get convinced with the formula. Okay, so it really takes time to by heart those formulas. So let us go through the derivations. Okay, so once again I'm going to write the value of m, which is nothing but 1 over the same value that we have got so far. It is under root of 1 minus u square whole square plus 4 zeta square u square. What you are going to ultimately do, you are now interested to calculate the parameters at resonance. When I say resonance, it means it is a maximum response. So in mathematics, you have to go for a maxima concept. So now you are going to differentiate m with respect to independent variable. So here independent variable is nothing but u. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to take the derivative of m with respect to u, and of course I'm going to equate it to 0 in order to use a maxima concept. Why I'm using maxima concept? Because I want to go for the resonant parameters like MR or UR. If I want to calculate, I have to go for a maxima concept. So let me just take a derivative of this. So derivative of this would be, now whenever I take the derivative of, let's say 1 upon root x, it will be 1 upon 2 root x. So I can just write this way, 1 upon, I can write 2 root of x. So root of x, let me write it again as it is, which is 1 minus u square the whole square plus 4 zeta square u square, and again we'll have to take a derivative with respect to u for x. So what is the derivative for x then? Look at the first term, it is twice of, or let me just write it as it is, you have to take a derivative. So I'll go step by step. Okay, need not to worry. So again the first term remains as it is, just twice of 1 minus u square the whole square plus 4 zeta square u square. And now let us take the derivative of the remaining term. So if you take the derivative of this with respect to u, it will be twice of 1 minus u square. Obviously again taking the derivative of minus u square, which comes out to be minus 2u, plus now taking derivative of this with respect to u, 4 zeta square is a independent of u, so it is just multiplied by 2u in that case. I hope you understood that. Ultimately, you know what, I'm just going to equate it to 0. I'm going to equate it to 0. So what is going to happen, this denominator will get directed to the right hand side, and this will also get multiplied with 0. Ultimately it will become 0. So what we have is only this term. So let me write this term properly. So what is remaining, let me write it properly. It is twice of 1 minus u square multiplied by minus 2u plus it is 8 zeta square times u, which is absolutely equal to 0. So after solving this, try to get the value of u. So u will become under root of 1 minus 2 zeta square. 1 minus 2 zeta square. So let me tell you, since you have actually taken something called as maxima concept, the value of u you are getting would be related to resonance. So therefore you will have this value as u r. This value as what? U r. Since as you can see, m is what? It is function of u. Check it out. We have this curve. So as you can see, m is what? It is function of u. Now my question is, when u becomes ur, ur stands for what? A resonant frequency. What m will become? M will become mr. M will become mr. So let us use this concept. Let me say this one as equation 1. Let me say this one as equation 2. So can't we just substitute the value of u as ur in equation number 1, and let us try to get the value of mr, which is nothing but the resonant peak. I hope you understood my plans. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm just going to take this m expression as it is, and there in the place of u, I'm going to substitute the value of ur so as to get the value of mr. So let me substitute the value of ur, but before that let me write the generalized expression for m once again. It is definitely time consuming, but let me tell you, once you understand the meaning of this, then it will give you the other joy. So 1 minus u square the whole square plus it is 4 zeta square u square. So let me substitute the value of u to be under root of 1 minus 2 zeta square so as to get what? mr. That is equal to, it is 1 over. So now what is going to happen? Very simple. See, it is 1 minus u square, but u square is what? It is 1. It will become minus of, or I would say it is plus of 4 zeta to the power 4 plus the second term we have 4 zeta square, and if I again substitute u square, it will be simply 1 minus 2 zeta square. So here as you can see, 1 gets cancelled. Now what is remaining? Let us write. It is 1 over under root of, so what is the first term we have? It is 4 zeta to the power 4. Then we have 4 zeta square, and 4 2s are becomes minus 8. So it will become 4 zeta to the power 4 plus 4 zeta square minus 8 times zeta to the power 4. So what we have, the ultimate expression, the end expression, now I can write it is 4 zeta square minus it is 4 zeta to the power 4. This becomes the value of mr. But can't you see, I can take this 4 zeta square out. This is a common factor. Let us take it out. What do I get? mr is equal to 1 over. So if I take 4 zeta square out, but since it is under root, what really comes out under root is 2 zeta, and what remains inside is simply 1 minus zeta square. So this is the value of mr, where mr is called as resonant peak. The mr is called as a resonant peak. If you remember, the similar quantity we used to calculate in case of the time domain analysis, and that was something called as MP, and we used to call that as peak overshoot. And if you remember the expression for this, it was e to the power minus pi zeta over under root of 1 minus zeta square. This is how we used to calculate the peak overshoot, MP, in case of time domain, if you remember. Let us define their individual purposes. Why do we calculate the peak overshoot in case of time domain? Let me tell you very clearly. See, you know what? When you get the maximum value of current or maximum value of voltage at a particular time, those values of current and voltage we generally called as a peak value. and that's the reason why it is called as a peak overshoot. Yes or no? The reason why voltage maximum value and current maximum value should be known to you so that you can actually provide the proper insulation in the system. Because the maximum value, if it exceeds the value, then it may burn out your system. And if you want it not to happen, then you should actually provide what? Insulation. So the aim of calculating peak overshoot in time domain is to basically build a proper insulation. So the question remains, why do we calculate the resonant peak in terms of frequency domain? Why do we do that? Let us understand the reason why. Because if you look at the MR curve, it really started with 1, then it went to the maximum value, and then it is coming down. And this is happening at a particular frequency, and that particular frequency is called as a resonant frequency, that is UR. So this maximum peak that I'm getting, it is what we call as MR. What does that mean? At a particular frequency, system is going to oscillate with this maximum peak. With this maximum peak, it is going to oscillate. So what is going to happen at a particular frequency? Your system may experience a maximum vibrations, and it may lead to disintegrate your system. It might happen that your screws or nut bolts inside the system, they may get disintegrated, and it should not happen. And that's the reason why what is the maximum value of MR possible should be known to you in advance. Accordingly, you are going to build your system with that proper mechanical strength. So in order to decide that, you should know what is the resonant peak in case of frequency domain, and in order to define the insulation in the system, you should know peak overshoot in time domain. I hope you understood the meaning of resonant peak and the meaning of peak overshoot, and what is the aim behind calculating them, right? Now let us try to correlate MR with MP. I'm not going to give you any relation between MR and MP. I'm just trying to have a correlation between MR and MP. So can't you see that this MR is inversely proportional to zeta? As well as if you look at the expression of MP, it is also inversely proportional to zeta. So this is a common factor between MP and MR. What does that mean? I can now correlate MP and MR, even though MP is something that we have calculated in time domain. MR is something that we have calculated in frequency domain, but still I can say that MP and MR are directly proportional. I can say they are directly proportional. Obviously, we don't have to derive any formula between MP and MR because both the domains are different. But now what I can say that if the zeta is increased, MR also decreases and MP also decreases. So they have got a direct dependency. I hope you are clear with that. So this is what regarding MR. If you remember, we have something called as UR, that is nothing but the resonance frequency. What was the resonance frequency? It was under root of 1 minus 2 zeta square. It was under root of 1 minus 2 zeta square. But do you remember what was omega r or UR? What is UR? U was basically omega upon omega n. So it was omega upon omega n, which is equal to under root of 1 minus 2 zeta square. Since it is happening at resonance, I will call this omega as omega r. Can I say now omega r is simply omega n times 1 minus 2 zeta square? Then therefore, this is the derivation for the resonance frequency. So this is the derivation for resonant frequency. Now let me tell you, here we have to define the critical value of zeta. If you remember in time domain, we used to say that zeta equal to 1 is defined as the critical value of zeta. But here, let us try to determine what could be the critical value of zeta. What does that mean? At frequency equal to UR, can I say that the magnitude becomes 1 by root 2? So what I can do is, I can exactly do it reverse. Let me write the standard magnitude expression, which is 1 over under root of 1 minus u square whole square plus 4 zeta square u square. Suppose if I equate this to 1 by root 2, suppose if I equate this to 1 by root 2, and then if I calculate the value of u, it will automatically become ur. I hope you understood that. So I have just done the reverse step. That magnitude I have substituted as 1 by root 2, and the frequency at which the magnitude becomes 1 by root 2 is considered as ur value. So how do we do that? Again, just square both the sides and cross multiply it and get the value of ur. So let me just do two steps for you. Square on both the sides. So it will be 1 upon 1 minus u square whole square plus 4 zeta square u square, which is equal to 1 by 2. So just cross multiply this. You will get u in terms of zeta. You will get u in terms of zeta. So I'm just going to write the final value for u, and I would call that u as ub, not ur. Let me correct it. It is not ur. Obviously, it is ub. Why I'm calling that ub? Because I want to calculate the bandwidth. Okay. Ur stands for what? Ur stands for this. That is resonance frequency. Okay. So you should not use this ur term. Let us use ub term. Okay. So finally, the ub that you will get would be equal to, it is under root of 1 minus 2 zeta square plus, again we have under root of 2 minus 4 zeta square plus 4 zeta to the power 4. And obviously you know that this ub is nothing but omega b upon omega n, isn't it? And again it is the same expression. So I can write now omega b as, I can shift that omega n to right hand side. The same expression I'm writing, I'm not just writing this under root, I'm just writing 1 minus 2 zeta square term as it is plus under root of, what is remaining? It is 2 minus 4 zeta square plus 4 zeta to the power 4. Can you see that this whole expression is under root? So what I'm actually going to do, I'm just going to complete this bracket, and on top of this I'll write power as half. So power is half, it means it is under root only. So this is the final expression for omega b. This is the final expression for omega b. Of course, this relation, if you see, it is quite complex to remember. But let me tell you, in case in the exam, if they are asking for bandwidth value, you must know this formula. So obviously it is very difficult to really recollect this formula or maybe to remember this formula. But guys, we have absolutely no option. We have to remember this formula of omega b. So since I know the bandwidth now, this bandwidth also I have to relate to some time domain analysis parameter. That is nothing but the settling time. So what is meant by settling time? First of all, what is meant by bandwidth? Bandwidth means the range of frequency over which the system works okay. I repeat, the range of frequency over which the system is working okay. When I say system is working okay, it means we are getting satisfied output. System is behaving nicely. Let us understand what is meant by settling time. If you remember the time domain analysis, after settling time, the system gets into the steady state. System becomes steady. From transient behavior, it enters into steady state. And the time taken by a system to enter into steady state is defined as a settling time. So let me recollect that settling time. It is given as 1 upon 4 zeta omega n. If you remember, this is nothing but the definition of settling time. This is the definition for settling time. So how come now I can relate this settling time with bandwidth? Let me tell you. If it is settling, if the system is settling, what does that mean? System is behaving nicely. System is working okay, and that's the reason why it is getting into steady state. Otherwise, system will never get into steady state. So ideally, it is required that system must get into steady state. So if system is getting into steady state, system is working okay. System is working okay means system is working under the frequency which is a part of the bandwidth, because the range of frequency, meaning that the operating frequency is definitely a part of that bandwidth, because bandwidth is not just a single frequency, it is a group of frequencies together. So if you select any frequency within the bandwidth, at that frequency the system is working nicely. So definitely settling time is possible to get only when the system is working okay, or system is operating with a frequency which is allowed by the bandwidth. I hope you understand my point. And now let me just try to figure out what is the correlation between bandwidth and the settling time. So TS stands for settling time. As you can see, this TS is inversely proportional to zeta. Just look at this. This TS is inversely proportional to zeta. And so with the bandwidth also, this omega B is also inversely proportional to zeta. What does that mean? It means now I can directly correlate this bandwidth with settling time. This bandwidth with settling time. So I hope now you got the proper understanding of a frequency domain analysis for the second standard system. And now let me just come to the conclusion part, or I would say a kind of summary part. So far, we have seen a time domain parameters. In this lecture, we have seen frequency domain analysis. In time domain analysis, we used to have omega d, which is nothing but the damping frequency, which can be correlated with omega r, which is nothing but the resonance frequency. And I would say omega d is directly proportional to omega r, or omega r is directly proportional to omega d. So definitely I'm not giving any formula between omega d and omega r. It cannot be defined because both of them refers to the different domain. MP, that is nothing but the peak overshoot in case of time domain, is correlated with MR, that is nothing but the resonant peak. And over here, MP is directly proportional to MR. You can say that. Similarly, when I am talking about TS and omega B, okay, what is omega B? Omega B stands for bandwidth. And TS stands for what? It is settling time. So what we have seen, settling time is inversely proportional to zeta. But what about bandwidth? Let's look at this. Bandwidth. The bandwidth is directly proportional to zeta. Look at this. It is not inversely proportional. Let me correct it. So since it is so, now I can relate this TS with the bandwidth like this. TS is inversely proportional to what? Bandwidth. So more is the bandwidth, lesser is the settling time, and vice versa. I hope you have understood the concept of frequency domain analysis for a standard second order system. Thank you.